The Florida Gators got to commit Jamir Perez. You are a Florida Gator.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Monday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my rate work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And the Florida Gators yesterday added to their 2026 recruiting class with the defensive lineman Jamir Perez. And the Florida Gators have now 2 commits in the 2026 class. Obviously, still a lot of work to go. Currently ranked 73rd, but it's May. They were ranked around this in October of last year. Plenty of time, not stressing about it. And with just how recruiting is, can't care about it right now. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I can be happy about a commit. We got the shades on for a commit. But as far as, being rooting, tooting, all that stuff, can't do it. I don't have it in me right now to do that. But I am excited for Jamir Perez, like what I saw on film. He was also being recruited by Ohio State, Cincinnati, Vanderbilt, and Wisconsin as well. I think that those recruitments will continue, and I will say this. He said yesterday after committing that he's done. He's like, "Yep, nope, I'm committed. That's what I'm looking at." And maybe. But I can't trust those statements because Florida has had 2 players in the 2026 class say, "I'm shutting my recruitment down," only to flip. And so I'm sorry, this isn't against Jamir Perez. This isn't against anyone specifically. I've just seen it too often now where, and this isn't even a Florida specific thing. This is just a college football thing where I see or hear, "I'm shutting it down." Don't buy it anymore. I just don't. I'm sorry. And until there's any semblance of consistency with those statements, I just can't buy into it. I'm gonna be honest there. Jamir Perez is 6'4", 330-pound defensive lineman out of Ohio, and at 6'4", 330, right now I would expect him to be fitting into that nose tackle role. But I make sure to say right now or expect that because there's a couple possibilities there where if he gets taller but remains at 330, well, then he'd probably play more of a nose tackle role. I mean, more of a 3-tech instead of a nose tackle role where, look, if he grew 2 inches and stayed 330 pounds, that's Caleb Banks' size. Caleb Banks is listed at like 6'5.5", 6'6", 330 pounds. So if he got a little taller but didn't add weight to that, probably going to be more of a 3-tech. It is also possible that, let's say he gets on campus, an Ohio kid gets on campus in the state of Florida. Well, you're not used to that kind of humidity, that kind of heat. Probably going to lose some weight. Maybe he drops to 6'4", 310, and he starts playing more of a 3-tech role. That's why I say right now he's at that size, and right now that is what I would expect him to play at the next level. It's not to say that I think the plan will really change with it, but it's just to say he's a high school kid, and I think that's an important thing that people often overlook when we talk about these high school kids. We're like, you can come in at 5'11", 185, and there's a chance that by the time you leave school, you're going to be 6'2", 6'3". Those are possibilities that I don't think enough people talk about. And we actually talked about it for quite some time, a couple years ago, we'll say, with John Garcia from Rivals now, about how there are schools that try to project things like that. Try to say, yeah, you're a little undersized, but it's an undersized that we could deal with, while also accepting, hey, maybe you grow a little bit and you're not so undersized anymore. Jamir Perez also had his player host was Makai Boyro, which usually those player hosts are players in your position room, in your position group, and oftentimes playing the same position as you, in which case Makai Boyro, nose tackle, Jamir Perez, nose tackle. So I will say I like the addition. Even on film, I like what Jamir Perez does. Obviously, he has things to clean up. Like he's a 3-star defensive tackle for a reason, which we'll talk about in a second. He's a 3-star defensive tackle for a reason. He is still a high school football player. And I think that a lot of people kind of expect these kids to be more refined than they probably realistically should be. I think that that's one of my reasons with this coaching staff, why I've been so fine with the way that they recruit, is that I think oftentimes, whether it's a 5-star or an unranked kid, when they recruit a kid, it is, can he develop into a premier player? Can he develop into that guy? And I think that what they do is they take a lot of guys with the physical tools to be great, but need that refinement. And they go, okay, we'll refine you. And I think Jamir Perez is one of those guys that needs that refinement, but has a very high ceiling. So if you get him close to the ceiling, you're talking about a really good football player there. It's also important to note that I have said recently that I'm really caring about rankings less and less. I think they're bold, more so than ever before. And I have always kept the sentiment that at nose tackle, I really don't care about the rankings. It's not we'll say, poppy position. And so I think that a lot of these recruiting services are horrible at evaluating the grit of football. I think that's a common flaw that really all of them have, is not recognizing and appreciating what the grit part of this game is. Not recognizing and appreciating what a good nose tackle can do for you. What just a body bag snatching guard can do for you. I don't think that these recruiting services recognize that. And I think a lot of it is because a lot of them never put the chin strap on and actually went out there. And I'm not saying that I was in the trenches like that, but being able to go out there and recognize it and appreciate it is something that I think is very overlooked by these recruiting services. Like I've said before, I think they're really bad at determining the grit factor of this sport. It is what it is. But Jamir Perez joining the Florida Gators football team. He's part of the 2026 class. Joins Will Griffin as the only 2026 commits. We'll talk about the rest of the visitors that were on campus this weekend when we get back with Locked On Gators. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free, wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators had 6 more visitors on campus this past weekend. We will talk about them today. And also, by the way, Arkansas guard Boogie Fland is supposed to be on campus today for the Florida Gators, today and tomorrow. And hopefully we will be covering a commitment. Wednesday, Florida's supposed to be visiting the White House. The Florida Gators basketball team is supposed to be visiting the White House. Hopefully we will have more information and celebratory news about that. Hopefully. But the Florida Gators football team had 6 more visitors on campus that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is Felix Ojo, offensive tackle out of Texas. I've said before that I think this is a guy you got to put a full court press on the entire time. Needs to be priority number 1 in this recruiting class for the remainder of the cycle. And I'm not saying that Florida is going to do that. I'm saying that that's what you need to do. My understanding is that they are putting pedal to the metal on it. But I'm going to continue to say that, well, I don't care about anything other than putting pressure on getting Felix Ojo to be a Florida Gator. He could commit tomorrow, and I'd care. I'd care. But whether he's a Gator or not, I'd still be like, all right, let's see where this goes in December. And that's not a knock on the kid. That's what recruiting is nowadays. And honestly, and part of that is schools will do what they can to stay in touch with the kid, and they'll do what they can to stay in the good graces of a recruit. And then they're like, all right, yeah, like, we're a close second or a third or whatever it may be. And then early signing day is approaching. They're like, you know what, let's throw a bag at them and just see what happens. And you get your foot right back in the door. And so that's why I go, you know what? I'll wait. It's not a knock on any individual kid. It's not a knock on anything. It's just how recruiting operates now. And so I'm just going to cover it the way that it deserves to be covered right now. Felix Ojo, playing time sounds like a bit of a priority. And for as long as I've been doing this show, for 4 years now, for the 4 years I've been doing this show, I've said it maybe a trillion times. I don't like the idea of a true freshman playing significant snaps on the offensive line. Look, in general, I have concerns about true freshmen playing significant snaps on either side of the ball. It's not a position-specific thing. I just don't like the idea of relying on freshmen because I think they're very volatile. I'm kind of the same way with the NFL and rookies. I don't like to rely on rookies that much because I think they're volatile. So it's as simple as that. Felix Ojo is someone I may be willing to bend on there. I think he's immensely talented, immensely physically talented as well. And I think that he could become I think he has early NFL draft potential. And I want those players on my offensive line. I do. I want those kinds of guys on my O-line. I think Florida's done a fantastic job of building their trenches defensively and even building offensively, finding hidden gems and developing them. Get me an ass kicker on the offensive line. Just get me a dude that's going to line up and say, you know what? I don't care who you are. I'm going to beat your ass up and down this field. And I think Felix Ojo is that. So that's why I say prioritize Felix Ojo. He's got to be priority number 1 because I think he's that guy. I think he's a nasty trendsetter, and I want that on my O-line. Like NIL for Felix Ojo, like NIL is going to be a factor, right? It's not even something that I'm saying is being reported by anybody. I'm not saying it from a reporting standpoint. I'm saying it from this standpoint. I don't know, because I generally think all NIL numbers are inflated. So I don't know how real that Jackson Cantwell number is with Miami of like the 2.5 million reported. But I say Felix Ojo NIL is going to matter because I do know that offensive tackles are getting paid right now. And so I think that for whichever team is the favorite, regardless of NIL, like remove NIL from the equation, whoever the favorite is, once you introduce NIL, they're going to have to fight and be competitive with it because it ain't going to be easy because people are going to be throwing a lot of money in Felix Ojo's direction. Also on offense, wide receiver Calvin Russell is on campus, still has visits with Florida State, Miami, Oregon, LSU, Michigan, and North Carolina. I wouldn't be shocked if North Carolina started losing some visits because of all the chaos and mayhem they've got going on with Bill Belichick and his girlfriend or whatever she is, Jordan Hudson. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those visits started dropping, some of the recruitment started dropping, because there's already reports that, hey, things are getting really weird and ugly in Chapel Hill, and he might not even be the coach by the time we get to week 1. So the fact that that's happening before he's ever even coached a game tells me, hey, maybe don't pay too much time investing time in that. It just might not make sense. From a source that I spoke to about Calvin Russell, Florida feels really good about things. And while the source that I spoke to didn't feel confident enough to say Florida was the leader, they did say that they feel like Florida made a lot of progress with this. And so Calvin Russell, hopefully, big name player, he is expected to commit on July 5th, which is not the last time you're going to hear that in this show. Not the last time you're going to hear that in this segment. But Calvin Russell's expected to commit July 5th. This thing is going to make me wait until December to feel really settled on how this commitment stands. Edge Luke Wafle, I'm sorry, I couldn't find a pronunciation for it, but he was on campus as well. Florida's in that top 5 with Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and USC. And I will say this, let's get this one out of the way. Rumor is he's targeting July 5th as well. Okay? Next thing about Luke Wafle is that his brother plays for Penn State. And so many people, because this is a thing that the public does, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I do think that there's a lot of merit when you just take this approach of trying to read the tea leaves or trying to say, hey, well, maybe the most obvious choice is the most obvious choice for a reason. And so we're going to take that one. All totally valid. All that's totally valid. But Luke Wafle's brother plays for Penn State. So Penn State is oftentimes viewed as the public favorite for Luke Wafle. A couple of notes on that. One, Luke Wafle's been very secretive about a lot of, or not even secretive in the sense of like he's hiding things. He's just one of those recruits that, isn't looking for the clout of being like, oh yeah, these are my schools. Like I'm loving this. And every visit, it's like, oh, there's a leader. They're the leader. Not one of those kids. A lot of things are being held close to the chest here. So there's one there. He's been pretty vague about things. But 2, and I think maybe the more important part of the whole, well, his brother plays for Penn State thing, his brother just transferred to Penn State. I think that holds a lot more significance than people are acknowledging because his brother just got there. It's not like his brother's been there for even a full season or 2. And he's got this great reputation. There's this great recommendation of the coaching staff. None of that. He just got there. This is not a multi-year relationship where it's like, yeah, Luke's been coming around because we've been recruiting his brother. So Luke's been around. Luke's been doing that. None of that. This is as simple as his brother transferred there. They are also recruiting him. That's it. I'm not buying any more into it because it's not like his brother's really been coached by James Franklin or anybody on that coaching staff. I can't buy too much into that. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm fine being wrong with that. I think the process there is still fine. We got 3 more players to talk about today on Locked On Gators. The Florida Gators have 3 more players that we're going to talk about today. First one is cornerback Chauncey Kennan. And there's the assumption that Florida State, LSU, Miami, and Georgia are his solid top 5. With the assumption that the Florida schools, so Florida State, and Miami, who are all in that top 5, have a bit of an advantage there. However, and again, maybe this is me being wrong with trying to read the tea leaves and all that stuff. Sure, I'll take that if that's what it is. But the counterpoint to that is that Georgia and LSU are still very much in that. And so I think that that's a testament to how hard Georgia and LSU have both been pursuing Chauncey Kennan, because he's been pretty open that the in-state schools have a leg up and that that's an important thing, or maybe not an important thing, but that's a relevant factor to this. And LSU and Georgia are still in that recruitment, if not at the top of it. And so I think them having that just natural disadvantage of not being in state, but that they're still in that top 5 and potentially leading that top 5, I think that's a testament to how hard they're recruiting him. And I think that this is one that, again, expected to commit July 5th, but this thing is going to drag out. Okay? This thing's going to drag out through December. If I had to guess now, I'm going to say it's going to drag out through December. So we will say that. Luckily for Florida, Chauncey Kennan expected to take an unofficial visit in early June to Gainesville once again, which important, especially when you're getting, 2 visits in 3 weeks, basically, right? You got right now, or this past weekend was just for the sake of keeping it on Saturdays, we'll say the 17th. Then you got this weekend's the 24th. Then you got the 31st, and then you got the 7th, and he's supposed to be there early June, specifically that first weekend. So I think that's a good sign for Florida in this recruitment process. Then off the tackle, Ikenny Ogboko. He was a late-ish addition to the visit list. He wasn't on the visit list when we last spoke about this big weekend. Early-ish last week. I want to say it was early-ish last week. We'll say middle-ish. Middle-ish of last week. He wasn't on the list. He's one that I don't think we're going to get a ton of information on his recruitment. Been keeping everything very quiet, but he is a unanimous 4-star from North Carolina. He's got great size on him, but his recruitment is one where, similar to Luke Wafle, there are a lot of people who try to, I guess, read the tea leaves and all that. And this one has, I think, a bit more validity to it because Ikenny Ogboko's brother plays for Georgia, so they're viewed as an early public favorite. He's an offensive tackle that is also a basketball player. So there goes the multi-sport athlete trend still, especially on the offensive line. That's been a huge trend for Florida under Billy Napier, Rob Sale, Jonathan DeCoster, has been offensive linemen and defensive linemen usually play multiple sports. Skill positions players oftentimes run track as well. All that stuff. Ikenny Ogboko, basketball player, multi-sport athlete there, also has official visits scheduled with Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and the last one's Notre Dame. If that doesn't tell you that this thing's going to drag out, then I don't know what will. Because he could go through all those visits and make that decision the next day. And I'm still going to look at it and say, well, he had all those schools pursuing him. This is not an easy decision, which I'm going to take a second to just remind people my stance on this recruiting thing and why I don't try to be too harsh on kids dragging their recruitment out, and why I don't try to be too harsh on kids that flip once or even twice. I try not to be too hard on kids for that. Because many of us, as in you listening, me speaking, many of us will never have to make a decision of this magnitude. Okay. And sure, there will be people that make some decisions about personal life stuff that to you, obviously way more important. And even in the sense of you making a personal decision about your life or me making a personal decision about my life might be a more important decision relative to him picking his school, the college he's going to go to, or any recruit picking the college they're going to go to, right? Like me making a decision about, marriage, children, all that stuff. To me, it is a more important decision than someone deciding where they're going to go to college. But the thing is, I don't have hundreds of thousands, screw that, millions of people that care about it. That's what I mean when I say so many of us will never make a decision of this magnitude where millions of people care about it. Ekene Agoko, like I said, official visits, Florida, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Those are huge national, global brands. Millions of people will care about this commitment. And so many of us will never know what it's like to make a decision under that kind of external pressure. Internal, sure, we'll make more important decisions. Externally, most of us never going to do that. And so that's what I say, or that's what I mean when I say that most of us will never be in this position to make that kind of decision that many people care about. Because we won't. And that's okay. I'm never going to step foot on an NFL field, padded up, playing a full game, but I'm still going to criticize it. So people are starting to criticize things. But I just want to say that, like, have a little grace for things like that. The last player we're talking about is running back Carson Baker. He said that Florida's moving into his top 5. Not sure who's moving out, but I would assume that we get an answer within a few weeks there for some visits. The top 5 is Clemson, Florida State, Georgia, South Carolina, and Ohio State. Hopefully, Florida State or Georgia are the schools that get bounced for Florida, because I think that would be a big double whammy there. A rival school getting bounced. The rival schools out of that top 5 and Florida's into it would be just beautiful to see. I mentioned this last week for Carson Baker because Florida wasn't in that top 5. I said, this is an easy spot for Florida to get back into. Running back is an easy position for this Florida coaching staff to gain traction with early. Running backs play early. They play often. They've found huge success. And this is an offense that's still going to run the ball no matter what. Billy's going to run the ball. Okay? Running back, easy spot for Florida to gain traction, gain ground, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So Florida's doing that. For Carson Baker, just to know the kind of player that he is, he's a track athlete. And his 100-meter time is 10.65. That 10.65 is the exact same time that Aiden Mizell had as his personal best. Okay? We're talking about a running back who, again, usually bulkier, more just muscled up, shorter frame, all that. They're built to be more physical. They're built to deal with that kind of contact more often. So they're typically slower. Like in the NFL Combine, you'll see it. You'll see receivers running 4.27, 4.29, 4.31. And a running back running a 4.32 could be the fastest 40 time that you got. A running back running a 4.38 could be the fastest 40 time that you get at the Combine. So that kind of stuff where you see, Aiden Mizell going to be a blazer at receiver. That's what Carson Baker is, a running back. He's a running back that runs with Aiden Mizell times. He's a running back with Aiden Mizell speed. That's huge when you're looking for a home run hitter out of the backfield. Thanks for making Florida Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free. Listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be back later today. That'd be dope. But at the absolute worst, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about Florida Gators. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.